Good morning. The cuckoo clock went off. It is 10 o'clock, and we are very happy to have you this morning. Good morning. My name is Curtis Wubbena, and I'm a member of the Alpine Church of Christ. Thank you for staying home today and contributing to the stoppage of the coronavirus. As far as Alpine's concerned, there will be no church activities during this first week in April. I'm thinking if we can work together for maybe at least another week, maybe longer, we may be able to see some progress in this war with this invisible enemy. Last week, we finished to study the Old Testament book of Nehemiah, which actually is a study of Ezra and Nehemiah. The books describe the rebuilding of the Jewish way of life thanks to the Medo-Persian Empire. We spent time talking about the temple, and we read New Testament passages teaching a new concept, or where the Old Testament was pointing to. This is the concept that Jesus taught, and it's that the temple is actually the people, but not just any people. God lives and dwells in individuals as the individuals respond to God's eternal plan through Jesus the Christ. But that's another Bible study. Today, as I mentioned last week, we explore the church. This is a timely subject since some are concerned that we're disappointing God by not meeting today, or not trusting in God by not meeting today. But actually, the only thing that we find today is that the church in Alpine has temporarily left its building during this crisis. It's actually a wise thing to do, and that too is another discussion. But let's begin our Bible study by reading a recent Facebook post. I think it's pretty appropriate. It says this: with church doors shutting across America, it's time for us to show that the church has never been about the building. We are the church. So if you get your Bible, I'd like to give you a passage to reflect on this week. Join me in reading a passage about what the church is and the role of the church during this crisis. We'll be looking at Acts chapter 7, verses 30 through 41, and I'll be using the King James Version. Verse 30. And when 40 years were expired, there appeared to him in the wilderness of Mount Sinai an angel of the Lord, in a flame of fire in a bush. When Moses saw it, he wondered at the sight. And as he drew near to behold it, the voice of the Lord came up unto him, saying, I am the God of thy fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Then Moses trembled and durst not behold. Then said the Lord to him, put off thy shoes from thy feet, for the place where thou standest is holy ground. I have seen the affliction of my people which is in Egypt, and I have heard their groaning, and am come down to deliver them. And now come, I will send thee into Egypt. This Moses whom they refused, saying, who made thee a ruler and a judge? The same did God send to be a ruler and a deliverer by the hand of the angel which appeared to him in the bush. He brought them out after he had showed wonders and signs in the land of Egypt and in the Red Sea and in the wilderness for 40 years. This is that Moses which said unto the children of Israel, a prophet shall the Lord your God raise up unto you of your brethren like unto me. Him shall ye hear. This is he that was in the church in the wilderness, with the angel which spake to him in the mount, Mount Sinai and with our fathers, who received the lively oracles to give unto us, to whom our fathers would not obey, but thrust him from them, and in their hearts turned back again into Egypt, saying unto Aaron, Make us gods to go before us. For as for this Moses, which brought us out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what became of him. And they made a calf in those days, and offered sacrifice unto the idol, and rejoiced in the works of their own hands. So isn't that funny? We have in verse 38, the church in the wilderness. So what's the church doing in the Old Testament? Let me get another version. The New International Version translates Acts 7:38 this way. He was in the assembly in the wilderness with the angel who spoke to him on Mount Sinai and with our ancestors, and he received living words to pass on to us. So then the question is, the translators, is it assembly or is it church? Why did the Greek scholars translate this particular word several different ways? Well, that may be the key. Let's go back to the original Greek word, ekklesia, which meant the people separated out. Now, I always do better when I'm able to use something in my life, in my day and time, to explain something that may be an abstract concept. And so when I think of ekklesia or church, I was looking for an example, a modern day example, for the use of this term, besides church related. So I thought about Boy Scouts. When you think of a modern day example for ekklesia or church, listen to some of my thoughts and see if I'm correct. To be a Boy Scout, you have to be a boy. You have to be the correct age. You have to be willing to follow the Boy Scout rules and requirements, and you have to pay your dues. You can be a Boy Scout, you can be a boy and be the correct age without ever becoming a Boy Scout. I want you to reflect on that for just a moment. So what I'm saying is, in my example, not every boy is a Boy Scout. How this relates spiritually is that not every believer in Christ is a member of Christ's church. That's a teaching that needs to be addressed in the religious world, because many in the religious world suggest that believe and you're saved. Let me give you a passage to dwell on this week, and I'd be more than happy to visit with you about this. Let's try John 12, verse 42. Let's use the New International Version. It says, Yet at the same time, many even among the leaders believed in him, but because the Pharisees, they would not openly acknowledge their faith for fear that they would be put out of the synagogue. Now, I know some people may say, well, they're just weak believers. They were still right with God because they believed that Jesus is the Messiah. But that's the important thing of reading in context. And so I encourage you, as you evaluate John 12, that you read the whole chapter. In fact, read the whole book of John. See if it helps out. But John 12:43 says this, For they loved human praise more than praise from God. So although we might be inclined to give the people mentioned in verse 42 the benefit of the doubt, God clarifies. He says they loved human praise. And of course, other passages talk about when you prioritize and put human things above God, that we've kind of missed the boat. Anyway, just think about it. Ask God for understanding. Pray for this understanding. Now I want you to get back to Acts chapter 7 and verse 28. We're not going to have a real long Bible study this morning, but I'm hoping that you'll spend quite a bit of time on reflection. So I had a friend by the name of Robert Turner, and he summarized this whole idea this way. Here is the very essence of the local church. So he's talking about the Alpine Church as well as other churches. He said, when kindred spirits agree to work and worship together, a partnership is formed involving the will of each member. Fellowship with God continues, and to it is added a sharing relationship with one another that makes each local church membership something distinctive. In other words, what I'm trying to say this morning is that we must think people, not building, if we're able to understand church. The church is the called out or the assembled, in the sense that they're distinguished from the people of the world. The Lord's church, speaking of the whole, consists of a certain type, kind, or quality of people. Genuine disciples, Luke 14 verse 26, also known as believers, Acts 5 verse 14, and also of the way, Acts chapter 9 and verse 2. It's an important idea, because when people think that we're disobeying God or disregarding God when we choose not to gather at 402 East Sulross Avenue, I think there needs to be a clarification as what the church really is. The church is not a building. The church is the people. And in this time of great crisis, we need the people of God, the Christians here in town, to set an example of how we live our lives, not through a checklist, not feeling like if we don't make it on Sunday morning that we missed our checklist, but actually living a life of faith, that we support our community, we support our government, we try to be a good example to other people, and be the people of God that are described often in the New Testament. So let me just summarize what our Bible study was about this morning. Today I shared Acts 7 verse 28. I actually shared the whole concept. But my hope is that I've opened the door to understanding the term church. It was a very general term used in the Old and the New Testament, and I even tried to give an example using in my life my understanding of the Boy Scouts. But church is used in reference to God's people in the Old Testament and the New Testament. Not everyone who believes that Jesus is the Christ is in the church. I like James 2:19, which says, "Thou believest that God is one, thou doest well. The demons also believe and tremble." That's a whole new topic, but it's very interesting that the term faith and belief is used about 5 different ways in the New Testament. And one day we'll talk about that. But the idea that all you can do is believe, and that belief will equate to a relationship with God, is not supported by the New Testament. When God talks about belief, He's talking about active belief, showing by obeying God the things that we do in our lives, and not just accepting that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God, because the demons and Satan have to believe that. In short, the church is not the building. There's a kid's song that we sing, and it goes, "The church is not a building. The church is not a steeple. The church is not a resting place. The church is the people." You are the church. Be a good example when we walk into grocery stores and we see people being ugly to the cashiers or questioning why things are not stocked like they want it to. Encourage people to be peaceful and to love one another and to be patient with one another and just to do the best that we can. That's part of being a godly person. Let me close again, and I hope you can find on the internet the saying that I went on this morning, and that is, with church doors shutting across America, it's time for us to show that the church has never been about the building. We are the church. Thank you for tuning in this morning. If you'd like a short devotional talk, at 11 o'clock I'll be coming on to give a short devotional about the Lord's Supper and then some ideas to reflect on during the week. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, and God bless you.